Hi, this is Peter Schweizer, and welcome to the Drill Down. Well, we truly have a housing crisis in America. Crisis is a word that gets tossed around a lot, but in this case, it's real. But what if people actually don't want you to be able to buy your own home? We're going to talk about that today. The host of this program, 𝐃𝐫𝐢𝐥𝐥. Eric, do you remember your first home purchase and how you felt and what it cost you and all the details?
I do remember all those things. It was 2009, and thanks to then President Obama, who had for that $8K for first-time home buyers, you wouldn't say that President Obama bought me my first home, but he did buy me my ostentatious bookshelves I bought with the $8,000 I got. So, by
the way, that's a quintessentially American thing to do. $8,000 to buy a house. I'm not going to use it to actually pay the house. No. I'm going to buy something else with it.
I'd like to buy something frivolous. I have fonder memories, Peter, of the time I sold my first home.
Oh, yeah?
Just because, like, at the time the home was paid off, and so it was just a straight cash homey situation. So I 100% went to the mortgage title office like super thugged out. Like, like in a tracksuit.
Look, bitches.
It's true.
Well, I'm not quite as street as you are. My first condo I bought in the early 90s in Washington, D.C., paid $115,000 for it. It was in McLean, Virginia, a nice area, and it was 3 times my income. How many people could say that today, that they take their income, triple it, and they can buy a house for that price? There is a massive housing crisis. We're not making it up. The average cost of a home, more than $400,000. Even when you look at renters, a statistic out there that 30%, half of renters basically pay 30% of their income on their rent. 25% of them spend more than 50% of their income on rent. It's a massive problem, and there are lots of reasons because of it. The Trump administration is coming up with some affordability suggestions, right?
Yeah, so this is what kind of caught our eye and what has led us down this rabbit hole, which we were going to drag you, the listening audience, through with us. It is the Thanksgiving season, Peter Schweizer, right. And this is important in my family because I have multiple children who hate seeing all the Christmas decor. They're like, well, you're just skipping right past Thanksgiving. And the Trump administration is not. They're emphasis on the giving because they've got a couple of different ideas.
Yep.
They want to give people like a $2K stimulus check that's going to be funded by some tariff revenue, supposedly. They're touting how, Ozempic drugs are costing less, and they're like allegedly going to go after big beef for cattle, for beef prices. But the thing that caught our eye is they have suggested, not just casually, a proposal to have a 50-year mortgage as opposed to a 30.
Yeah.
Now, the idea between that would be, that if you have mortgage payments spread out over 50 years, it's significantly less allegedly than 30 years. But just so you know, and I know that you did not tune into this podcast for financial advice, but if you
please don't.
Please do not. Well, don't. I mean, that's fine, but don't get a 50-year mortgage either, man.
Yeah.
It's like it just on a $350,000 house at 6% interest. A 50-year mortgage, you would have a $250 a month less payment. You'd save $250 a month.
Yeah.
But you would spend, Peter Schweizer, an extra $367,000 in interest.
So the banks like this.
The banks love it.
The 50-year mortgage. By the way, just to show that Trump has been outdone, in Japan, they've had 100-year mortgages that actually get passed from generation to generation. Also an absurdly dumb idea. And it really fails, I think, to get to the root of the issue, the root of the problem.
Doesn't shock me, by the way, because Japanese, like many Asians, they think in terms of dynasties, not decades, So there's always longer-term thinking.
Yeah. So why does this matter? Why does housing matter? Why are we taking time to do a podcast specifically on that? And this is because housing is crucial for so many things. It's an example of achievement and accomplishment for people. This encourages people to work hard, motivated, participate, because they actually own something. It's not something that they're just renting from someone else. It offers pride and stability, right? If you own something, you're going to take better care of it. You feel stable. You can come home. You may be having trouble at work. You may be switching jobs, but you've got this home that you can go to, so it encourages stability. It also gives you a sense of belonging. If you're part of a community and you own something, you're going to be more wedded to your neighbors. These are all important social factors. You also mentioned something else, by the way, and that is that lower home ownership means what? Less fertility.
Huh?
record scratch moment from Peter Schweizer there. Who was expecting that F word? but it's actually like, so in doing some research for just housing costs and related societal impacts. And by the way, everything you just said matters because it is a societal moment. Like we now have only 39% of people under the age of 35 owning homes, which is down sharply. I mean, so we are much less invested. Gen Z says like only 20% of the national median price is what you're going to need for a down payment. But yeah, like when you don't have a home, it impacts you. And there's a study that literally just came out this week. Higher rent can be attributed to 11% fewer births. So the fertility rate is down when rent goes up.
Well, and think about it. I mean, we both have families. When you're a young couple and young family, you're looking at, are we going to have enough money to do this? Which I think, again, is a terrible idea. Don't be irresponsible. You're never going to feel like you have enough money when you're young. But you add to that you're paying high rent. You're one of those people paying 50% of your income to rent. You're thinking, I have no prospects of ever owning a home, ever providing a place for my kids to grow up. I'm just not going to have kids. It creates those kinds of terrible disincentives. So housing is important and home ownership is important. It's the American dream, and it matters, and it affects the future of the country in really important, profound ways. That's why we're focusing on it today.
We are focusing on it, and we thought that there's a couple of different factors that are sort of being thrown out and suggested. And actually, your point, let's mention where we're going to end now so people can understand, because I hadn't thought about it but your point is, there are forces, there are people, there are entities for whom the idea of keeping a nation of renters is a goal.
Yeah, and this has been stated, right? This has been stated by some people. The World Economic Forum, a famous essay you came up and found about, saying that by 2030, right, that they wanted people to essentially be renters, and you're not going to have any home ownership, and you're going to be happy about it.
Yeah, in 2016, there was an essay published by the World Economic Forum. The phrase includes, "You'll own nothing and you'll be happy." That was from the article entitled "Welcome to 2030."
Right. And by the way, this is probably written by a guy who owns a lot, right? You're not going to own anything, be happy. I own a lot, and I'm very happy.
It's also worth pointing out that the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals does not have property ownership for all by 2030 as a sustainable goal or as a listed goal. They got lots of goals listed, but property ownership for all ain't one of them. And what we have seen, just for whatever it's worth, is the home sales in this country have gone down significantly under the Biden administration. It went from averaging about 5.6 million homes per year, and now it's down to about 4. So we are seeing kind of a significant kind of stalling in that era, and prices have gone up. And some people would say, well, what else was happening? And what, if there's these kind of globalist, you'll own nothing and like it forces, another political policy trend they support is immigration. Yeah.
Immigration, a huge factor in this, because it's like any other market, supply and demand, right? And housing construction has actually slowed down over the course of the last several decades. And we're going to talk in a minute for the reasons for that. But at the same time, we've had tens of millions of people coming to the United States illegally and in some cases legally. So you have a greater demand and a shorter supply, which is, of course, driving up home prices. How big of a problem do you think this is?
Well, it depends on who you talk to, but some people would say, look, we've had 120 million people coming to this country since the mid-90s, and we only built 30 million more houses, so you do the math. But some people would also say, well, listen, we saw surges. There's a Harvard study that kind of breaks this down. They would say that it's less attributed to the migration influx, and it's more attributed to, you've got this historically large millennial generation who's just now entering home buying season, and so they're able to drive the price up because the demand's higher. But what is absolutely true is the number of immigrants has increased significantly in this country. We saw 990,000 people enter in 2020. That number's up to over 3 million in the year of 2023. So you did see a significant influx. And, those people might be renting, but if you got more people renting, that drives the renting prices up, which means you drive more people into the market to potentially buy a house, which means you're driving the housing prices up. And then, of course, you've got interest rates, which are up, so that obviously helps make the cost more expensive. Foreign-born households accounted for 25% of household growth over the 4-year period from 2019 to 2023. 1 in 6 households are headed by an immigrant as of 2023.
Yeah, so that's going to push up the price. But to get to the larger issue here, and that is the motivation of people who may want to see the cost of housing go up. One of the big factors here are the regulations and the new environmental regulations that have been put on. And some of these environmental groups, by the way, have been very outspoken that they don't want people living in single-family homes. They want to live in apartments. They want them in condos.
And by the way, the Venn diagram of people who push for environmental regulations and sort of more lax immigration policies is significant.
Yeah. A lot of overlap there. A study done shows that there's been a 24% increase in single-family home construction costs simply caused by recent regulations. So the average cost of a home is $400,000. Slice $100,000 off of it. That is caused by these new regulations. And there are lots of regulations. A lot of them are environmental. A lot of them are zoning. And a lot of this is local, by the way. There's not a lot Trump can do about, California or Texas or parts of Florida creating these environmental restrictions. And these variations are enormous for that reason. In San Francisco, restrictive zoning laws add $400,000 to the cost of a price of a house just in San Francisco.
Wait, say that. Say that again.
$400,000 added to the cost of a price of a house in San Francisco is because of zoning restrictions.
AKA the actual median cost of a house
in the entire United States.
In the entire country is added to the cost of a house in San Francisco because of zoning restrictions.
Yeah, in Seattle, Los Angeles, and New York City, it's much better. It's only $200,000 is added to the cost. So these are the regulations that make it very, very difficult. And overall, what the studies show is that home prices regularly have outpaced construction costs from 1980 to the current time. And the reason is regulations, right? The cost of building a home has certainly increased. Lumber gets more expensive, labor gets more expensive, but the costs have increased much, much higher, and that's because of these regulation restrictions. Just one example of something that was done at the federal level, Joe Biden had this push. He didn't want homes to have gas. He wanted them to have electric. That alone increased the cost of some $15,000 on the cost of a house construction. Just that one simple regulation.
Wait, how come?
Well, because you need to have different wiring, you need to have different
home construction. Schweizer is the best. Schweizer,
yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
Break it down for me.
I know so much about it. Find me a hammer and nail, and I might be able to use that, but I'm not sure. So it's a massive, massive problem, and the question is what is the motivation behind this? And I think for some people, they just think, I just want to have a better environmental situation locally, but there are people that recognize the reality that people that can't own a home are more vulnerable. They're more vulnerable to control, to manipulation. You can impose more controls on them because they don't have the independence of owning a home. The biggest investment most people are ever going to have is owning their own home. And if you take that away, you make people now more vulnerable to manipulation and control by powerful forces.
And we are seeing sort of a generational divide. You were saying that actually there's a significant percentage of Americans that own their own home. Like outright, like no longer.
40% of the people that own homes right now have no mortgage,
which is speaks to these boomers that have kind of gotten into these houses at lower cost, and they're able to pay.
Hey, don't be dissing us boomers.
Nothing but respect to that. But think about to the extent that it is a younger. It's a relatively new cultural push, right? To own nothing and to kind of share everything, and we're on this open border, open society thing. And what I'm saying is that the older generation who grew up with a different value set in this country,
right?
They were not as influenced by that. This is actual sovereignty is an American value. I want to be fiscally responsible. I want to be in charge of my own destiny. Because what's true is, and back to the whole 50-year mortgage thing, the banks love it when you finance for an extended period of time. I had a guy actually when I bought my last house, he said 30-year mortgages should be illegal because of how much money the banks make off of the interest rates. And so a 50-year mortgage then is even weirder and more expensive. But the point is, like, and this is just a real thing, like, no one is going to tell you to pay off your home because no one makes money off of you paying off your home.
Only you do.
Only you do. But again, that speaks to like these older generations.
I think it's older generation, but I'm gonna stand up for the younger generations. I'm not gonna be the grumpy old man. Part of it is, again, first place that I bought, it was 3 times my income. And I was working for a nonprofit, right? It was not like I was...
you're still working for a nonprofit.
Yeah, but my point is like I was not making bank. I was not an investment banker. It was 3 times my income. It was affordable. If you are a young person now, finding something 3 times your income to purchase a condo, this is in a nice area, McLean, Virginia, forget about it.
Yeah.
I mean, so the realities have changed, and the realities have changed, I would argue, because we are socially engineering. Housing policy has become socially engineering. It's no longer focused on creating affordable, great places for people to raise their families and to build equity. You have all these people that have all these other agendas, right? They want to urbanize, so they don't want, suburban sprawl. So they don't want single family homes. They want condos built. They want all these environmental restrictions. They want mass transit. They don't want people using their own cars. So they create other development restrictions. All of that has gone on. My generation never faced that. So I think part of it is the opportunities are not there because you have this political class that wants to steer younger people to a certain direction they don't want to go. Because when you're young and you have kids, odds are pretty high you're going to want to raise your kids in a single family home in the suburbs. I know there are people that like the urban experience, and that's great. I'm not dissing that. But most people want to live in the suburbs. It's very, very hard to do that because it's not affordable in a lot of places.
So this is the first podcast that we've done since the elections last week. We didn't really get into it. We have yet to address, not that we need to, but the election of Zoran Mamdani, the election of Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill. So you see Democrats win kind of across the board in New Jersey, Virginia, which some people would consider to be potentially purple areas, and then obviously you have this Democrat socialist. And one of the trends that people have pointed to is, and I know you push back on this a little bit because we talk about it, but a decrease in support among Latinos and Hispanics for Donald Trump. And they said, like, the exit polling, he carried 40% of the Hispanic vote in 2024. Hispanic support for Republicans generally dropped to less than 1/3. And many attribute that to the ICE raids and the deportations. So what I'm saying is that do you think that we'll see an attempt, because they clearly recognize that stuff's more expensive and the housing is not as affordable. That's one of the reasons why they're proposing a 50-year mortgage.
Yeah.
Do you think they would be wise to, or do you think they will attempt to try to connect, hey, part of the reason why we're doing these deportations and we're enforcing immigration law is because we do believe there's a direct connection between the amount of migration this country has seen and how expensive things, including housing, has become.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an important byproduct of this, and I think you're right. They should do that.
And for whatever it's worth, the FHA under Trump in March of this year stopped allowing non-citizens to have FHA guaranteed loans. It's not a huge number, but it does speak to a shift in terms of direction. We're going to leverage the federal government to prioritize American citizens and not other people.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Mamdani, for example, people focus on the things he said about the global intifada, about he's a socialist. What did he campaign on?
Making stuff cheaper.
Affordability. It was all about affordability. Now, his ideas are harebrained. They're not going to work. I mean, the way you fix housing cost problems in New York City is by encouraging construction of, apartment buildings. And he ain't going to do that.
I didn't hear that on his platform.
Yeah, no, he just wants to cap. He wants to have rent control, which just means that landlords are not going to improve their properties. They're going to become more derelict, and it's going to become tighter because you're going to have an increased demand. More people are going to be coming there. So I do think the affordability issue is key. And I do think that Trump's focus, if he wants to do well in the midterms, is for Republicans to focus on this issue. Because here's the thing, inflation rate increases are down from where they were from Biden massively, but the cost of things continue to increase, just at a slower pace. So inflation right now is at about 3%. You really want it down by, down to 2%. So, and there's all kinds of debates about what the cause is, but you should be focusing on those issues because affordability is big. And Donald Trump won as what? The working class candidate. He did not win because, he won Martha's Vineyard and he won all these rich enclaves. He won because working class, middle class Americans said, this guy embraces my values. And one of the ways he can demonstrate that is by working on these cost issues. The challenge is when it comes to housing, so much of it is based on the state and local level, because that's where these zoning decisions, where a lot of these regulations are being implemented.
And even back to their argument originally about tariffs, is the idea is they're trying to reset the economy to favor and support the working person. I mean, Scott Bessent, in one of his big interviews early on, was like, look, more people took European vacations than ever before, but more people also used a food pantry than ever before. Like, this is where the economy has been.
Yeah.
And so it would make sense. And the market's up, but not a significant percentage of people,
right,
especially among Trump voters, participate in the market.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's unfortunate. You've been president for a year now, so he does sort of own it. And on some level, you kind of run up against the very real limitations of what can a president actually do to make things cheaper for people. I guess suing the cattle industry is one of them.
Yeah. I mean, he wants those quarter pounders, the prices to come down. Look, the future of the country is young families in America. That's the future of the country. I mean, whether you look at it demographically, economically, culturally, it's young families. Those are the people that are getting squeezed by home buying. A lot of young people that are buying their first home, they're getting major help from their parents. I'm not talking about a few $1,000s. They're getting major help. It should not have to be that way in America. There are lots of people that are doing it right, playing by the rules. They still cannot afford to buy their first home because of these destructive things that are being done in that sector.
So what do you think that, I mean, the 50-year mortgage, I think, I didn't see a ton of people be like, man, great idea.
Can't wait.
Yeah, except for the banks. Like, yes, sir. We'd love to sell you a 50-year mortgage.
If you buy one, the average purchase age now is 40. If you buy one at 35, you can own your home when you're 85.
Right.
That's not a very exciting idea. And I get people flip their houses and they move to the other ones, but yeah, you're just running faster on the treadmill.
But I do think, to your point, that there are cultural trends, and I don't love to like the whole, they're out to shape you, but it's not wrong. Like
they say it.
They say it.
Yeah.
And so to the point, there are forces that do want to have the society look more environmental regulations. We're going to direct where you live and how you live and kind of open border stuff.
Yeah.
And I do think it would probably be wise to kind of highlight, look, why we're doing what we're doing is it's not just because we're, as they would say, xenophobic or racist. It's like actually connected to our desire to make America more affordable for its citizens, and we feel like there's a real connection here. And other studies have supported that. So maybe they need to start explaining a little bit more why they're doing what they're doing, not just like, hey, we're sending troops into Seattle.
Yeah, and they should challenge the people that are preventing these reforms from going forward, from facing them.
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom looks like he's going to run for president. With the hair gel and everything, he needs to be called out on why things are so unaffordable in California. And it is precisely because of the big hand of government that their housing costs are so astronomically high.
That's a great point.
Well, we appreciate you, as always, to take the time to listen to this podcast. We know your time is valuable. You can go to thedrilldown.com to see about the work that we're doing. And we ask also that you hit the subscribe button and join Team GAI. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.